All right, so where there's smoke, there's fire. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Apple TV Plus original series, Smoke. This will follow the pilot episode, which is directed by Kari Skogland. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Lehane is back. He has created this TV series. He is a guy who has a pretty successful career developing mystery novels and people who create violence, and we don't find out who they are until the end of the segment or whatever. Look at Mystic River. And so Smoke is a TV series that is a dramatic series on Apple TV Plus. And so we have Taron Egerton, who is a arsonist investigator who plays Dave Gunson, and of course Jurnee Smollett, who plays Michelle Cauldron. And basically what this series is a dramatic storytelling police procedural drama type of thing. It's about individuals who are investigating two arsonists, and in the process of everything, with this pilot episode, we are getting the nuts and bolts of who they are, kind of a little bit about their past, and then we're getting kind of the nature of what the story is trying to represent, which is how people who are very lonely, how people who live in a world that, they don't feel like they're part of, will do crazy things like be an arsonist. And so that's what this first episode is doing. Dave Gunson is a recent firefighter who got himself in a predicament that made him just not want to do it anymore. He's married to a lady who has a kid, and he also wants to be an inspiring writer, like a firefighter story writer. And so we see kind of his world is very much a Pacific Northwest style story, so it might be like Washington or Oregon, but like if you look at the aesthetics, it very much feels like that Pacific Northwest. But he's there to investigate these arsonists. There's two arsonists. One is a DNC arsonist, and one is another arsonist. I can't remember what they call it. But he is joined by this Jurnee Smollett character who is assigned to him as a lead investigator into this story. And though we find out a little bit about, she was once part of another department, she has come over here, her whole story hasn't been fully revealed. All we know is that she was sleeping with a character played by Rafe Spall, who plays Stephen Burke, who we find out was a police detective. She's also was once involved in a very horrific fire accident, which I'm assuming killed maybe her family. And so she's come on to deal with the situation of the arsonist, but why that is not fully explained. But then Dave Gunson's also, he's like implemented into this, like investigating who these arsonists are. And he's come to the conclusion that, one of them could be a fry cook worker, a worker in a restaurant because of the grease they use, because of the fact they use milk bottles. The other one has a limp and they can't figure out who it is, but starts fires by using this like kind of interesting cigarette. And we see as this episode runs, the arsonists do their work, where one sets like a chip bags on fire and like burns down part of the store. The other one involves a woman who unfortunately gets really badly burned as we see her skin peel off, which is really disgusting. And we see like one segment of that. We see it from the point of view, like a first person point of view of that arsonist and walk into the store. They're apparently very familiar with the sight lines and stuff like that, so they're able to like keep out of the camera view and stuff like that. But what's really interesting is in this episode, we actually see one of the arsonists. This gentleman is a gentleman who works at like a Popeyes or Bojangles, who makes fried chicken. He, of course, is made fun of. He's very lonely, watches porn at home. We see him following people around. We find out as these two individuals, Dave and Michelle, are kind of looking into the stories, they figure out, and Dave knows that the arsonists are very lonely individuals, and one of them actually works at a fast food restaurant because of the grease situation. And it's true, this guy works at the grease, working with grease and food, and he uses like fluid from milk bottles and stuff like that. And in the process, he follows a family, a couple that go out for dinner. They just recently left their kid home with a person, and they come back, and he actually follows them and sets their house on fire. And it's really sad and depressing because the husband that is burned badly was trying to save the kid. Luckily, no one in this episode has been killed, but you can see that it is pretty badly for one individual. Is going to be probably on life support. But yeah, it's a really it's really in your face. It's very visceral. It's very M-rated with the things you see. Like I said, that woman with her skin it's pretty graphic, but it is, I'm assuming, really authentic to what it's trying to do. But once again, David Lehane, who has written this episode and who's created the series, really gets into the nuts and bolts of the one guy who is one of the arsonists, but also gets into the nuts and bolts of the two individuals, the two main characters, the Jurnee Smollett and the Taron Egertons, but also gives us people like Greg Kinnear and Rafe Spall. Like I said, Greg Kinnear, of course, plays a detective or not a detective, but I think he plays the arsonist investigator units, like manager, supervisor, or whatever. But once again, what I really like about this series, and especially the first episode that I've only seen at this point, is just how intuitive it is, how slowly it ekes into like kind of the storytelling elements, them researching, watching them break into a computer system so they can figure out who may be a firefighter, because the other arsonists that we haven't seen could possibly be a firefighter, and they look into like the schedules of the different firefighters and try to look at like histories. We see one that has like many days they've taken off. There's a lot of stuff there that if you like slowly think about it, you would understand why they would investigate. And of course, because Dave Gudson's character was a firefighter, he knows a lot of these people, so he's able to play off like he is understanding of them. But of course, Michelle's character, the Jurnee Smollett's character, is a little more forceful, and she kind of puts herself in a predicament that gets her in trouble with the Greg Kinnear character, but also gets her in trouble with the firefighters that will look bad on her and, of course, Dave's character. But a lot of that is what's happening. That's most of the episode, and that's a lot of what you kind of see as the story runs along in this first episode, is just a lot of setup, just a lot of like these two individuals. Dave questions why she's even there to help him, and of course Harvey's character, the Greg Kinnear character, explains, and then they have to work together, but there's a little bit back and forth. Like when there's an arsonist issue, she's not called upon it, and she like reams Dave's character and stuff like that. And it's just really kind of the setting of the pieces of the puzzle of a 9-episode season. I'm assuming that if this does well, I'm sure they'll do another season, but for maybe it's just a limited series. I'm not entirely sure. But once again, there is a lot of predictability here. There's a lot of by the book when it comes to what they are. But I think if you can like slowly kind of play the story out and kind of massage it and make it a really kind of fun, energetic thing, because Anna Chlumsky and, of course, John Leguizamo have not appeared in the series. So it's going to be interesting to see where they play out. But if Dennis Lehane and his crew are able to massage the series, and the directors, once again, Kari Skogland directed this episode and did a really nice job, we'll see how it plays out. Once again, Taron Egerton's writing a book. He is narrating the story. He's giving us a little information about how smoke and fire kind of cooperate with one another, how fire is always watching you, and kind of a similar situation with the guy. And I really enjoy what they're doing here. I think it's a really solid pilot. And then I really love the fact that even though it's very standard by the book, the Jurnee Smollett having sex with the police captain, because I'm assuming she feels like terrible about herself and she doesn't want to feel like anything, and then she's like breaking up a marriage, and just she's a wayward like individual. And then she had the incident where we see her flashback of her, I'm assuming when she was younger, in a fire that was probably very tragic, which we'll learn about later on. We'll see how it plays out. It's a very kind of slow building. It's a very slow burn type of TV show, similar to like what Dennis Lehane's known for doing. But if you like procedural dramas, if you like the kind of, M-rated, what you would see on FX, like Rescue Me or something like that, that's what it's going for. It feels a lot like a more procedural drama Dexter in a lot of respects, because we got the narrator, we got the arsonist, we got the the people on the main characters who are kind of interesting, and it feels like that's what kind of they're aiming for, as well as like the codas of the firefighter force and the arsonist for investigators and stuff like that. So that is the pilot episode of Smoke. It will run for 9 episodes. 2 episodes premiere the same day, so I'll have my other review for the second episode. But with that said, that is my take. Really liked it. Think it has some really good ideas and has a really good start. For my score for this episode, I will give it let's say a 9 out of 10, just because I think it's a really solid pilot. I think it does a lot of nice stuff, and we'll see where it lands when it continues, whether it's worth watching and so on and so forth. So that's where I land. That's where I look at, of course, the first episode of Smoke, which is the pilot episode. And yeah, there you go. Anyways, with that said, that is my take. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below if you watched this episode of the first episode pilot. Let me know if you liked it, if you didn't, all that good stuff. Otherwise, thank you so much. If you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.